got in trouble early, 15 years old. That's so I ain't never been grown until like right now, because I've been in jail. All the times where it really counted, like, like anger, graduate high school, shit, and all that other shit. So when it was time for me to step up, I was already in jail.
King Von spent huge parts of his early life locked up, so by the time police arrested him again, he moved with the mindset of someone who already knew the system inside out. When leaked clips came out showing how he tried to play the officers, people couldn't believe the wild things he said. The earliest piece of footage takes us back to 2016, way before he even touched a microphone. Before rap, Von told interviewer Eyes that a lot of major moments in his early years happened behind bars. He said the first time he ever got picked up by police was as a young teen, but when they asked him when his street life really started, he just shrugged and said, "I don't know." That answer alone shows how deep his environment shaped him. Von grew up in Chicago's infamous O Block, a neighborhood known across the country for being rough and unpredictable. This was where he got tied in with the Black Disciples, known as the BDS, a group rooted in generations of street loyalty. It's also the same place that raised major names like Chief Keef, Lil Reese, and Fredo Santana, so the pressure and reputation on that block were already huge. For Von, a major turning point was his bond with Lil Durk. Durk wasn't originally from O Block, but he was close with people in the area, and he eventually became one of the biggest mentors pushing Von toward rap greatness. Von, whose real name was Davon Daquan Bennett, earned the nickname King Von because older BD members said he reminded them of King David, one of the legendary figures from their history. In an interview, Von explained, "When I was in jail, I got the name grandson because I reminded people of King David. The older guys in jail. Guys who were around when David was around would call me that because I carried myself like him." He said King David ran the streets with his own rules and code, and that same energy is what people saw in him. It became part of his identity. One of his first serious charges involved armed robbery, but earlier legal trouble from his youth didn't stick because the court felt he could still straighten out through correction programs. But even as he grew older, the streets didn't let him go, and he didn't step away either. People around him say that by the time he became an adult, he was already deep in a lifestyle that was dangerous and unpredictable. An associate named Tay Capone once said shootings were simply a normal part of Von's world. By 2016, Von was back behind bars again, this time connected to the fatal case involving Malcolm Stuckey, which put a lot of attention on him. Even while locked up, folks said he was still someone you had to watch closely. In one piece of CCTV footage, you can see Von and another inmate jumping towards someone and swinging on them, even while a correctional officer is standing right there. They kept throwing punches until officers rushed in and pulled everyone apart. Von was cuffed again, but he barely reacted, as if this was nothing new to him. After that, he had a sit-down with an officer, and just like in other clips you'll see later, he kept the same cool, sharp mindset anytime he was questioned. Even when the footage clearly shows him running over to get involved in the fight, he acted confused about why he was pulled aside. The identity of the other inmate and the person they clashed with hasn't been confirmed, but Von explained in his music just how common these brawls felt to him. In his track How It Go, he raps, "Now you locked in a room, you just plotting while you doing push-ups." That line sums up exactly how he stayed mentally ready while dealing with the chaos around him. Von kept throwing out bold lines like, "You better check on your bro cause the On the News came in, said he heard he got smoke," making it clear he always believed police were coming down on him way too heavy. And just like you'll see later, he always had some type of clever move ready whenever authorities tried to press him. The next situation jumps to 2017, and by this point, it was obvious King Von wasn't trying to win any awards for good behavior in jail. Instead, he ended up in another wild fight that showed he wasn't changing his ways anytime soon. This CCTV clip is straight up unbelievable. At first, Von casually steps over to another inmate and says something low under his breath. Then he slips back, shifts directions, and walks toward a different inmate who suddenly starts using another guy like a shield. The tension snaps instantly. Von begins throwing punches, and his target drops to the floor while Von keeps swinging. What makes it even crazier is everyone else in the room is cuffed and can't do much at all, so nobody's stepping in to break it up. Somehow, Vaughn pulled off a slick move and got out of his cuffs like it was nothing, almost like a stunt performer pulling a trick in the middle of a fight. One inmate even tries kicking the door to get the guard's attention, clearly worried things might get out of hand. Eventually, the officers rush in, separate them, and cuff Vaughn again. Aside from the CCTV, there's also body cam footage from one of the officers who came in after the fight. The moment they ask Vaughn what happened, he sticks to his usual routine. No admitting to punches, no details, nothing. Then they ask how he even got out of the cuffs in the first place, and he stays locked up mentally. Quiet, calm, and refusing to drop a single piece of information. Getting answers from him was like trying to pull water from a rock. The person he punched was said to be someone known as 051 Freaky, a member of a Chicago rival group. The whole situation reportedly started because that person had a tattoo reading Capone, which hit close to home for Vaughn since Capone was his close friend. Vaughn was even asked about the tattoo in a radio interview from inside prison, and he addressed it without giving away too much. To understand the drama, you have to look at the tattoo Vaughn had for L.A. Capone. The L.A. wasn't about Los Angeles. It stood for Leonard Anderson, Capone's real name. The name Capone itself came from the well-known Chicago figure Al Capone. L.A. Capone was an upcoming rapper, close with Lil Durk and Lil Yachty, and was expected to join Durk's label OTF before he was killed in 2013. Reports said he was targeted because some people believed he falsely claimed the death of a member from 051, which sparked serious tension across the city. So when 051 Freaky carried a tattoo that seemed to disrespect someone who recently passed, you can understand why emotions were high, even if reacting through violence only made everything worse. After the incident, footage showed Freaky was physically okay but clearly upset, especially knowing Vaughn didn't even have cuffs on when the fight happened. When police questioned Freaky, he kept things calm and didn't say much. Around this period, Vaughn still never mentioned anything about wanting to become a rapper, even though this would soon become his future. Another 051 member named Kiddo later spoke on the situation, giving his own perspective. And while these clips make Vaughn look like an unstoppable force, the next video shows a totally different side of him, one that breaks the so-called prison code, according to some, while others think it was a smart strategy to protect himself. Now we move to the most surprising footage from 2017. In November of that year, an interview was recorded where Vaughn was about to be moved into a new dorm filled with people he considered rivals. He felt like walking into that space would put him at serious risk, so suddenly he had a major decision to make. Option 1, tell the officers he's scared to be housed with those people, but doing that could make him look like he was exposing the situation, which in jail terms could bring bigger problems. Option 2, go inside that dorm with people who openly disliked him and deal with whatever came his way. But Vaughn came up with a third option, a move that shocked everyone watching. He decided to pretend to be gay so officers wouldn't place him in the same room as people he feared would attack him. This wasn't him coming out. It was him trying to create a reason to be moved without labeling anyone an enemy or admitting to being part of any gang. This approach did two things at once. It kept him away from his rivals, and it let him avoid saying anything that would be seen as snitching. He claimed he was gay, and the people in that dorm were described as strict Christians, so officers took his safety concerns seriously without him exposing anyone's identity. The officers probably knew he wasn't telling the truth, but claiming to be gay inside jail counted as a protected status, so they had to treat it seriously. And Vaughn didn't just say it, he leaned into the character, playing it smooth so his story looked believable. It's not even fully clear whether the rivals he was trying to avoid were connected to the earlier fights, but you can hear him shouting something toward Lil Josh, possibly referring to someone tied to the L.A. Capone side of Chicago history. Vaughn had stacked up plenty of enemies during his time locked up, so even if the police knew he wasn't being honest, his story actually made their job easier. Keeping him separated meant fewer chances of another violent incident kicking off, so in a strange way, both Vaughn and the officers benefited from him pretending to be someone he wasn't. The footage caused major drama online. Whack 100, known for speaking loudly on anything street-related, was especially fired up and said that inside jail, you never ask for protective custody, even if your life might be on the line. Whack had a past with the Bloods and spent time behind bars, so he always talked about jail rules like they were unbreakable laws. To him, Von should have never put himself in that position if he wasn't ready to face the outcome. Wack even compared it to how Muslims won't eat pork no matter what. It was all about sticking to principles with zero exceptions. But a lot of people clapped back in Von's defense. No Limit Cairo wrote online, "King Von is obviously not gay. Said y'all know my boy trolling to get put on another deck. Stop that, cap." He wanted people to understand Von was just trying to avoid a dangerous setup. THF Zoo, part of OTF, also jumped in, posting, "I don't see this part of the video on the blogs. Though y'all try so hard to tarnish bro's name, knowing he is one of the realest. If you've been in that county, you know you can't move nowhere once you on the decks unless you're half dead or requesting PC." He also claimed Von never ended up in protective custody at all, and he personally saw that during Von's time locked up. Even someone from the rival group 051 laughed at the footage instead of getting mad. He explained that you can't just pick where you want to be housed. Officers decide that for you. So Von using this trick was probably the only way he could avoid being placed in a room with people who didn't like him. Then the story jumps forward to a whole new moment, one that shows how Von acted when he was out of jail in 2018. By February of that year, he was free again, but still moving with the same bold, unpredictable energy. The video starts inside a police car, and the officer steps out, walking toward a scene covered in snow. A man in handcuffs is standing there wearing just a t-shirt, and the wavy dreadlocks instantly give away that it's Von. Even though the cold is brutal, he barely reacts at all. One of Von's friends is filming the whole thing from the side, making sure officers don't try anything they aren't supposed to. Von stays calm and starts cracking jokes with the officer, saying it's Valentine's Day and he needs to get home, like this whole arrest was just an annoying delay. His confidence throws the officers off. They think they're dealing with a regular stop, but everything shifts when they ask him about his past charges. Von casually replies that he had been locked up for a murder and 2 attempted murders. The officers freeze, stunned by how lightly he said it, especially while being recorded. One of the cops even warns him that he's being filmed, hoping he'd stop talking so openly, but Von keeps the same energy like nothing he said was a big deal. When another officer tells him he's under arrest, he just responds, "No, I'm not." It's clear he wasn't scared. He was playing the moment like a scene in a movie. We eventually see that he actually did have a coat, but it was sitting in the backseat of the squad car the whole time. The officers start losing patience with his jokes, especially after he tosses out a slick comment about the super cop, but they let it slide without escalating things. Eventually, Von was released, and he later said the police only stopped him because they were still frustrated that he beat his earlier charges. Even with all this chaos, 2018 turned into a major turning point for him. Seeing Lil Durk succeed lit a fire under him, and he finally decided to chase rap for real. Von signed with Durk's OTF label and dropped his first single, Crazy Story, near the end of the year, and that track took off like wildfire. Even though he had only been rapping for a short time, his raw talent came through fast. People were shocked at how naturally he could paint full scenes with his words. His storytelling style hit different, almost like a modern twist on legends such as Slick Rick, Scarface, and Biggie, who built entire worlds in their songs. But as the spotlight grew, Von's mouth didn't slow down one bit. Even with a rising rap career in his hands, he kept saying things publicly that could have landed him in trouble if he wasn't careful. When Lil Durk brought him onto The Breakfast Club, Durk practically had to nudge him mid-interview, trying to keep him from saying too much on air. For a moment, it looked like Von actually had a real exit route out of the dangerous lifestyle he came from, but either he couldn't let go or he refused to. The street still had a hold on him, and his choices kept pulling him back into tension. Then came the Atlanta situation in early 2019. During the early hours of February 5th, Von, Lil Durk, and someone named Bezo got into a heated argument outside Atlanta's well-known restaurant, The Varsity. The dispute was with a man named Alexander Weatherspoon, who was affiliated with the Vice Lords, and the energy shifted fast from talking to straight chaos. The argument escalated until 13 shots rang out. Witnesses later said Weatherspoon collapsed near the One Cigar Lounge during the incident, and the whole thing turned into a serious case overnight. 3 months later, Von was supposed to perform at a show back in Chicago, but things took a sharp turn. Instead of letting him hit the stage, police launched a massive raid on O Block, knowing he'd be returning to the neighborhood. Videos showed officers tackling him to the ground while his friends yelled that the cops were trying to snatch his chain. Police stormed in carrying assault rifles, trying to control the crowd as the scene got more chaotic by the second. At one point, it even looked like an officer had grabbed hold of Von's chain, sparking even more yelling from the people around. Von was taken to the station afterward, and one of the officers complained about him being disrespectful. They asked if he was carrying anything that could get him into trouble, and instead of panicking, Von kept cracking jokes like nothing serious was happening. He told them he ain't used to being tackled, and said he was too grown to be handled like that, brushing off the arrest with the same bold confidence he always carried. The officers even brought up the canceled concert and claimed that Von himself was the one who shut the show down, which only made the moment feel even more tense. Then they asked if he had any weed on him, and he told them he didn't have anything at all. Von switched right back into joke mode, talking about how much his hoodie cost and throwing playful comments at the same officer who tackled him earlier. Even though the situation was serious, he kept the same bold attitude that always made him stand out. The cops eventually explained why they grabbed his chain. They said they thought someone else in the crowd might have snatched it if they didn't take it first. It was their way of saying they were trying to keep the scene under control, even though his friends didn't buy that story for a second. After Von's arrest, Lil Durk later turned himself in as well. Durk posted a $250,000 bond to get released, while Von needed to put up $300,000 before he could walk free. Von was then placed on house arrest for the shooting accusations, stuck inside while waiting for the case to move forward. But almost a year later, something happened that changed everything. Another confrontation, another chaotic situation, and this time Von wouldn't get the chance to fight his case. His story took a sharp turn that nobody expected, ending any possibility of him returning to court. King Von's legacy is complicated. People see him as both a rising rap storyteller and someone surrounded by dangerous moments that will forever spark debate. Fans still wonder how many powerful albums he could have created if that final incident never happened. And others question whether he truly was the cold-hearted figure his music sometimes described, or if there was more to him that the world never got to fully see. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and see you on the next one.